Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And before we dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you guys that in 4 days, March 16th, our first ever live in-person event called Awakening to Oneness is going down in San Marcos, California. There are still tickets left. If you are interested in coming, the link to buy those tickets are in the description below. There will be group healings, one-on-one healings, teachings, activations. So if you are being called to this, come, let's gather, let's meet in oneness. Let's heal and start a revolution. Love y'all. Now let's dive into the episode.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So Ellie and I were just conversing and was like, let's go record what we're saying. Let's have this conversation over the podcast, because we were talking about how we both run a very similar program where we don't, when we're together, we're trying so hard to be connected, and we don't want to connect with friends. And this came up because every Tuesday Ellie works another job, and every Tuesday morning I feel like, oh, now I've got the space to connect with my friends, and I always call people, and that's kind of like my time to do it, which is completely self-inflicted, not trying to put any blame on Ellie here. And it got me reflecting that in my relationships in the past, I have felt the most free and the most liberated always post a breakup. Whenever I've been in a really really deep relationship with a partner, after we end and after I get over the pain, I go through this amazing, like, free, wow, I'm free. And looking back now, I can see that it's because when I'm in a relationship, I run all of these programs to contort myself into what I think my partner needs me to be in order to keep them happy, because if they're happy, then I'm happy. So I end up sacrificing a lot within myself, which is actually selfish of me, because I'm doing it for my own good. Because in my mind, the way the programs operate is, well, if I sacrifice all this, if I don't connect to anyone else and I devote myself solely to my partner and just make sure they're happy, although that sounds really beautiful in one perspective, it's actually because if they're happy, I'm happy. And if I do anything to rock the boat, it's going to bring up my insecurities. If I do anything to make my partner angry or disconnect from me, I can't handle it. And I don't obviously like that. So I'm going to do everything to try and keep the peace. And realizing that over the last week or so, I'm like, wow. So all of that freedom that I've experienced in the past, now that I'm doing the work, instead of me only experiencing it by going through a breakup, I can actually find that same freedom within myself by not projecting all of those programs and disempowerment onto my beautiful partner, Ellie.
Yeah, I run I run the same program. So it's like I have all these excuses as to why I can't like connect with my friends. And it's like I have this like anxious, I think, yeah, it's definitely anxiety that I'm working through this in real time as I'm talking about this on the podcast, guys. Clearly, we just discovered this. I've always known that I have this program, but I haven't gone into it. And I was like, no, just avoid it. I feel anxious. So I feel like if you're not doing, so let's say like night times are a time where I can finally relax from the day. And it's the time where I can call my best friends or like I can FaceTime, and I won't do it. And I won't do it because, well, Danny's here, and like, I don't want to take away from me and Danny's time and call my friend, so I won't do it. So I actually do that when you're busy, and I feel free to do whatever I want to do when you're busy. Like because on Thursdays you co-coach the MLC certification program, and like for me, that's my time that I can do whatever I want because it's so stupid. It's well, he's busy, so he's taken care of, and then I don't have to feel all the anxiety that I feel if I were to call someone when we were actually together, and then it's taking away. So I think what I'm feeling into is like that's enmeshment. Yeah, I feel
We've
enmeshment.
definitely got both enmeshment running here, and supreme codependence
and
and
attachment.
weakness. Yeah, and attachment. And all those, they all kind of come in that beautiful little packet of enmeshment, codependence, powerlessness, weakness, attachment, neediness. Like you can kind of group those all together normally when we're talking about enmeshment between partners. But the underneath the anxiety for you, what is it?
I think what I'm feeling, let me feel into it. So it's like, this is what runs. I can't take away my time from him. Like I can't have anything take away my time with him. So it's like you are first, number one, like fuck everybody else, like you're it. And now that I'm saying that, it's like that's how I've shown up a lot when I'm in like romantic partnerships. Like fuck everybody else, it's all about him and like my
Yeah.
time with him. So it's funny, the other day I was like walking the dog and I was thinking to myself like how in the past, because of all of my programs and wounds, I would, even if I had plans, right, I would ditch those plans to make room and make space for like the person I'm seeing, right?
100%. Yeah.
So it's definitely like deep rooted like codependency and attachment and enmeshment, because this is the person that you're the person where I don't have to feel loneliness. You're the person where I don't have
There you
to
go.
feel all of the things that are even underneath the loneliness. And so I can't sacrifice that time with you. Oh my God. Talking about it, I'm
Yeah.
like, Ellie.
It's okay. It's just the programs. It's just the programming, right? Yeah, I mean, same,
Yeah.
And what do you feel? So you said loneliness, you're afraid to feel
Mhm.
the loneliness.
Mhm.
What else do you feel that, excuse me, that I bring you, or that wounded aspect of you
Yeah.
that you are afraid of losing? Do you get what I mean by that?
Yeah. I think it's a sense of like security and comfort and like you're here with me. And I think that it doesn't help that the external factors also, like you and I both work from home. You and I are in the same literally organization, and like we just do so much together,
Yes.
which adds on to these programs like crazy.
Which is
So
a
it's like,
blessing, right?
yeah, but
It's so
everything always goes
beautiful.
to it.
It's so beautiful because our lives are so entwined in so many ways and we get to connect through that. But here
Yeah.
come the programs. And when our programs start to run and the enmeshment's still there,
Mhm.
obviously that's unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I just moved through this the other day where over the weekend, see like the weekends to me are the time where you and I don't have to work, so we can do everything together, right? And what's so funny about these programs is I'm at a place now where like I'll see and feel these programs running, and a lot of times they do take over, right? There's this part of me that's like, no, I want space and I don't want to do everything with him. And I want him to do whatever he wants to do. And I want to be able to do whatever I want to do. Like when I go and do my own thing, like I'm very content, right? But I get triggered when you make the choice to do things on your own. So like on Sunday morning, like I woke up early and I was like, hey, do you want to do this and that today? And you're like, no, I think I'm just going to spend the day basically by myself. Like I'm going to take the dog out by myself. I'm going to do all that. And I could feel this part of me that was like, okay, cool. Like did not care at all. And then I could feel my programs going, oh, I'm about to take this personally. And then I quickly shut down and I quickly, like, I was doing all these things to distract myself, like trying to find like a hiking trail that I'll go by myself and all this stuff. And then after you and I spent hours apart, I came home and you still were very much on like doing your own things. So, like you went into the room and you were in there for hours by yourself, and then you come out and then you go out on the balcony and spend hours and then I was just like taking everything so personally. I was getting so triggered and I felt so anxious. I was like, okay, I need to go into this. And so I drove in my car. This is what I do a lot. When like that takes over, I run away. So
You have to leave.
yeah, I have to leave. So like, Dan, sometimes like I'll leave and Daniel will I'll come home and he's like, where have you been? I don't say a word. It's kind of like, it's a behavioral program that I run there's a part of me that also wants you to worry about me. Like it's a behavioral program. Like I'm going to run away. I'm not going to say anything. And then I hope you feel all sorts of ways about it so that when I come back, I could feel this like neediness and this like, oh my God, I missed you. And it's like all of that too.
And the
so,
old me would have done that, right?
yeah.
And has done that probably with you in the past. And have I?
You don't ever, you
No.
never call me when and that's like another thing is like, I'm like, he never calls, he never texts like when I'm away, which I think is great. It's beautiful and it's great for me and it's great for you. But there is still that wounded part of me that would wish that you were like chasing after me or worrying about me or wondering where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I think before, obviously we met through this work. Before this work, that was me. That was how I showed up. I showed up as the like, because my big kind of like core nuclear wound in there is an abandonment wound. And
Right.
so this beautifully plays out in the dynamic of our relationship, because all you want to do is run away, and all I want to do is not be left, is not not have to feel that abandonment.
Oh.
And so it's taken this work over a number of years to arrive at a place where I can, like, we've been dating for 2 years. I can finally say,
yeah,
I need to spend a day by myself. And the problem with that is that I know what it's going to bring up in you. I know that it's going to activate your wounds, which is why I, in the past, have gone into all of the people pleaser, and in the past have shown up in that needy, like chasing you. But I know that helps no one, and I'm just showing up in my woundedness if I do that. And so over the years, I've had to build enough power to be able to say, hey, it sounds so stupid, I just need a day by myself.
yeah,
And then for you to be okay that you're going to actually run away, you're
yeah.
going to go through the rejection or whatever it is, and you're going to leave. And I have to be okay with, okay, yeah, there's some abandonment wound that's going to come up, and that's okay. And I'm powerful enough to love myself through it. And that's where there's no bypassing this work. Like, it's the partner that you attract is going to bring up your stuff. And yeah, it was so interesting. I knew what was going to happen on Sunday. I knew if I said this thing, it was going to trigger all of this. And in the past, I was too weak to kind of say this is a boundary and this is important to me, and I'm going through a hard time. And then the irony is halfway through the day when you came home, I'd moved through a lot, but when you came in, I could tell that you were in all of your stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, she's not ready to talk to me at all right now. Yeah. So I just have to honor the fact that I even asked you, are you angry or annoyed with me? And you're
Yeah,
like,
and I
no, I'm
lied.
fine. Yeah, you lied.
Okay, so can I think?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
last
yeah.
night I was coaching the group class, The Power Within, and Rachel Fiori came in to do a healing on everybody in the class, and it was incredible. Anyways, as one of the people in the class were moving through something, I realized that so the deeper teaching in the Way of Truth, one of the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, is that when you run a program of passive aggressiveness, I didn't realize that this is the program that I run. So I run a program of passive aggressiveness. When you ask me, are you okay? And I go, I'm fine. Not only am I running a program of passive aggressiveness, in the Way of Truth, I'm lying.
Yeah.
I'm lying and not really saying what I feel. I'm saying a complete lie, which is I'm not fine. And actually, like there's a lot of things that are coming up. Instead of expressing myself, I'll go straight into I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And my entire energy is you're not fine. And yet I'll just sit there and just lie my teeth off. And I know that there's a lot of other clusters of programs that are activated in that moment. But and it has to do with like I just have a hard time expressing what I feel, and so it's easier for me to
Yeah.
just like act like just turn off and get quiet and like act like I'm fine when I'm not, and I'm not acting like I'm fine. I'm acting like a little closed off brat that like can't express herself. And so when I went into what's actually going on here, so I grew up very, very, very rigid. My parents never really let me out. And I say never really. Of course, they let me out at times. But like one of the rules, like I didn't move out of this is how enmeshed I was. I didn't move out of my house until I was like 23, 24. And even that, I had to have permission from my dad, who said no for a while until he finally said yes, that I can go fucking live my life and like be an adult. Right.
That's wild.
Yeah. And so he never let me sleep out. Like I would say like there were only a handful of times in my entire life he let me sleep out. And it was only because it was church people and he knew everyone's parents, but he would never let me sleep out. Every party I wanted to go to growing up, it was always a no. It was always a no. Even when I was in my 20s, like my curfew was 10 p.m. If I didn't come home at 10 p.m., my dad would call me like a raging lunatic until I came home. And then when I came home, he would be waiting for me and then he would ground me. And it was just like, it was awful. And then so that's my dad. And then my mom too wouldn't let me out a lot. And she even, especially on Sundays, it was always like stay home. So I feel like I was robbed a lot of life experiences because of their rigidity and because of their fear and their control and things like that. And so I spent a lot of time alone. Like even if I'm in a house full of like my family, I spend all my time in my room. And so I have all of this bottled up like loneliness and resentment and anger and sadness that I feel inside that I have not processed. And so whenever you say I'm going to take the time alone, the mental program that runs for me is you're taking something away from me.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that in my journal, I was like, ooh, okay, let's go into this. So you're taking something away from me. That's what I always felt my parents did. You're taking away my friends. You're taking away my social life. You're taking me my way of ability to grow, to experience, to make mistakes, to fall down. Like you're ripping everything away from me. And what's left of me is like this really bitter and resentful and angry girl. And so every time you do that, that's what gets activated in me. And so so the way I show up in that is I close down, which I did growing up all the time. I close down, I shut the door to my room for the entire day and just ignore everybody because I was so angry and I was so sad and I felt so alone. And so when you do that, it brings me back to all of those times where I was alone and then I had to feel everything that I was feeling. And I don't want to feel that, which is why I want to spend all my time with you so that I don't have to feel all of that stuff that's in there.
Yep. And that's exactly the same for me. It's so wild to hear you say that because that's pretty much an exact mirror of what I'm worrying about. Like I don't want to be alone, which is why I'm spending so much time with you. And if I have to go off and be on my own and actually be like, okay, I need to set this boundary, I'm afraid that you're going to leave. And when you leave, you're ripping something away from me, which
Yeah.
is the connection that I have to you.
Mhm.
The connection that, okay, she's here, which means I'm safe, I'm secure, I'm connected, I'm
Right.
good. And so it's just that's how these programs, these wounds, they vibrate at the same frequency,
Yeah.
and that's why we attract partners that reflect these things back to us or may have the same or a mirrored or opposite wound and program. And yeah, I really feel you with that. I'm just so petrified to be alone.
Yeah.
Because when I'm alone, I have to face the loneliness. I have to face the sadness that comes with it. And that's been really difficult for me.
Mhm.
And, that's what this work's all about.
Yeah. And I realized too, like when I was spending the day alone on Sunday, like the entire time I just feel miserable. And like I just feel so sad and like everything's being filtered through these programs. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, this is how I spend so much of my life. Just feeling miserable, feeling sad, feeling like I was dying in my room, like just never getting to experience anything. And so that's what comes up and I hate it so much. And so the lessons that I learned on Sunday was like all of this is so beautiful and so perfect. And so allow yourself to feel what you need to feel. And so one thing that Danny and I've been going into, he helped me go into was like my inner child has a really hard time blaming my parents for everything, there's still a lot of blame that I haven't processed and I haven't allowed my inner child to feel, and all the anger and resentment, and it comes out and projects into like people all the time. And so I'm allowing my inner child to blame them right now. I have to move through that, because if I bypass that, like I'll never get anywhere. And I feel so much resentment towards my parents, because I really feel like they just ripped away life from me because of their programs. Like, really breaking down my parents' programs, like my dad has such a gnarly control program and so much fear. The reason why he kept me inside so much was because he was so afraid something was going to happen to me. And so there's so much of my inner child needs to just blame them right now. And then as I alchemize the blame, then I know that it will just get me to freedom, because I don't want to be trapped in this, and I want to be able to enjoy my time with myself. Like, I really do love my company. It's just these programs kill it for me and ruin it for me. And so I need to move through what I need to move through, so that I get to a place the next time where you're like, I just want to take the day for myself. I'm like, awesome. Great. Me too. Like, great. And I'm not there yet.
When you say my company, do you mean my my own company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my own company, I'm really enjoying that. I spend a lot of time in my own company, just in a lot of misery and sadness. Like, I remember a year ago, oh my God, we were like, we just moved to a new city together. It was just like almost a year into our relationship. And I was so attached to you. Like, I didn't want you to ever like get away from me. Like, it wasn't healthy. And you came up to me one day, you're like, hey, and this is when we did, for those of you guys who don't know, me and Danny did van life for a couple of months, and we lived in a van, and it was quite the experience. And so we still had the van, and you were like, hey, I think I need to go take 3 days off and be by myself. And when you said that, I went to flight, fight, or freeze. I went into complete panic mode. I didn't know how I was going to move through that experience. I couldn't bear what was coming up for me. It was like this, I'm going to be alone. I don't know what to do. Like, he's going to leave. And like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, how am I going to get through? It was so much. And I remember I had to move through so many emotional programs. And then watching you get into the van, I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay. But then the 3 days you were gone, because we didn't really talk or anything like that, the 3 days you were gone, I felt so much sadness and like loneliness and misery. And the day that you were going to come home, I remember I was like walking on the beach with my dog Nala, and I was just so upset. And then you texted me, you're like, hey, I'm coming home. And everything just lifted. And I felt like ecstatic. And I was like so happy. And I'm like looking at Nala, I'm like, Dad's coming home. I was like, we got to go home. And I was like, whoa, like, what is this, Ellie, that you feel like this when he's not here, but when he's here, all of a sudden you're alive again. And so that was a really big wake up call as to like, oh, these programs that you run, these wounds are really, really deep. And just to honor it, because I quickly went into wanting to shit on myself for being like that. Like, you shouldn't be like this. And what's wrong with you? And it's like, Ellie, the layers to the codependency thing are deep. So just honor and open up to what is here. And even this last Sunday, I could feel how much of it I've healed and how much is left. And before, I couldn't feel that. Before, it was straight survival and freeze. Now it's, okay, cool, I can see what's running here. I'm still going to react like this because I'm still not all the way there. But I saw what was going on clearer than ever. Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful share. And this is a great example of, what can be underlying in partnerships. And that means if these are the energies that Ellie and I are kind of carrying and connecting through, we're missing out on so much divine connection. Like, missing out, I guess, is the wrong term, because we're evolving into that, right? But the way that we connect when we are together, these programs are running, which means they're being filtered through that. And the only way to really heal them is to do the work and be powerful enough to spend that time alone. And I remember when I took that, I was like, hey, I think it was only 2 days, or maybe I said 3 and I came back after 2. Is that right? I think
you were gone for 2 nights and came back the third day.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Okay. That's correct. I remember it now. Yeah, I really felt like I just needed to prove to myself that I could go be alone and be okay,
Yeah.
because I was getting so lost in our partnership,
Hmm.
and I felt like I was lo- I'd lost an aspect of myself. And this comes back to what I was saying at the beginning, where um, when I would go through these beautiful relationships and then there would be a breakup for whatever reason, I would feel really free afterwards. And I felt like I was getting back into this place where I was losing a part of me.
Mm.
And I needed to prove to myself, which is a program, right? That's just a program. And yeah, I moved through that experience and realized after, I think, 24 hours, like, you ain't got to prove anything, dude.
Mm.
There's nothing to prove here.
Yeah, just become.
Yeah. And I haven't, acted like that since, and needed that. I still need space, but I don't need to be
Yeah.
like, I'm going away for a long period of time, and I need you to leave me alone, and I need to go out of phone service. But that brings up another part of talking about this. When I do take time alone and then I get a message from you, it triggers the crap out of me. It makes me so angry,
Mm.
because what I feel like is I'm trying to grow up and I'm not being honored, and you're trying
Mm.
to keep me small and meshed and as a baby. And
Mm.
I know exactly where this comes from within my family. And yeah, I've had to heal that this year by creating boundaries and taking space from family members. Because when we are running those programs of enmeshment and codependence, we want to keep people in that energy.
Yeah.
Because if our partner or our child or whoever it is, our parent or whatever, starts to grow in their power and says, "Oh, I don't really need you anymore," all of a sudden those programs are like, "What? Like, you're supposed to be here, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be with me, part of me. You are me." That's what the enmeshment is. It's like there's no separation between the two beings. And yeah, so whenever I'm trying to take space and time for myself, that's what comes up, is like, whenever you say something or text me or call me, I'm like, "You're not honoring me, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to grow up and you're trying to keep me like a baby or whatever." And I've healed a lot of that now.
Yeah. And then, like, what's it say about me that I'm calling you while you're taking space? And as you're talking about that, I'm like, God damn, this reminds me of my dad. Like, I feel like this is what my dad does to me all the time. Of
Mm,
like, I miss you, come home. You're so far away. I haven't seen you, and blah, blah, blah. It's all this like guilt and trying to like keep me as a baby. The other day, he like texted me, he's like, I miss my baby. And I was like, ugh. Like, I just felt like really nauseous about that. Um, and so I must do that to you because this is what I've experienced my entire life.
yeah,
And
and I do it to you too.
you really don't. You don't really text or call me when I'm like away.
Right. I don't do, I guess I don't do it in that way,
Yeah.
but I do that's why it's so gross when we hear people calling each other baby.
Yeah. I mean, we call each other babe, and we've been trying to move out of that. That's like such a habit, but like the babe, it's like, oh, like we really need to work on that. Like I've been trying love. Hey, love, it's just the babe is, but anyways, but I think that happens with you. You say like sometimes when I'm off, like you'll just keep checking to see if I'm coming back. And obviously that's like a deeper wound.
Whenever Ellie goes away, I run this behavioral program that I'm constantly checking if she's coming home, because if she comes home, I'm okay. I'm secure because she hasn't left, or she's left and she's come back, which is my wounding. But I've noticed recently what's showing up is I'm checking to see if she's come back because I want to be left alone. And this is that part of me that, like, I just want my space to be honored. And yeah, it's all wounding. It's all wounding, like showing up that if she comes back, like I feel like I'm not being honored.
Hmm. Yeah, and energetically, I felt that from you this Sunday, where I was like, I shouldn't go home right now. I was like, I feel like he just needs more time to be alone. And, you know, as we talk about this, I dishonor my soul all the time. Like, my soul will go, we need to be alone. Like, you need to isolate. And when I say isolate, like, just go off and be on your own and do things.
Mhm.
And then the attachment will be like, we don't really need to do that. And then I dishonor my soul and I dishonor the space. And then I can't show up in this relationship in the way that I really want to be showing up, which is like so present and all of these things. But instead, I just dishonor what's being asked of me and I let the program take over. And so that's something that I definitely want to work on more of, like, hearing my soul. And my soul is like, hey, oh, okay, yeah, sure, let's go do that. Because I'm like you, I really love it. And me and Danny, we have a lot of placements. We're going to talk astrology for a second. We have a lot of placements in our 12th house. And our 12th house is like deep subconscious stuff. And it's a lot of like self isolation and like being on your own and needing that time to just be with you. And because of these programs, I dishonor that part a lot. And so I'm in a place now where it's exciting to see what I get to see without being so taken over by. Before it was like survival. The survival has been healed. Now it's just like what's left of these programs. And so I totally thank you for taking the space and growing in that way, because it just really lovingly pushes me into doing that for myself. And it's sad that I needed you to do that for me to get here, but also it is what it is. And yeah, I really respect that you've done that. It helps you and helps me. And I really
Yeah, it really does, and this has been something that I've been feeling into this dynamic between us for a while,
Mhm,
and then realizing how I'm stunting your growth
mhm,
by it's very selfish of me
mhm,
to not take the space that I need because I'm stunting your growth as a soul,
mhm.
because I'm allowing you as my partner to stay in the programming, in the
Right,
wounding. And
right,
by me not choosing to do what I need in that moment, which is time, space, I'm allowing that enmeshment to continue to exist, which is
right.
only keeping you trapped and
Mhm.
small.
Yeah.
And that isn't love. So that act of me taking space for myself, and it's less of a push. I know we use that verbiage, but it's an invitation, right? I prefer
Yeah.
that verbiage, right? It's an invitation for both of us to find our power,
Mhm.
and then we can actually, that's what true love is. Then we can actually connect through love and not through this wounding and this programming that we both received and then play out. So I started to realize over this last year how it's me taking this space, although my programs tell me everything under the sun, that I shouldn't do it, she's going to feel bad.
Mhm.
The most loving thing I can do is invite you to spend time on your own and to not need me, and same for me, right? This is the same thing, so that you can move through what's there, and
Yeah.
then that's going to allow more love and true connection in our partnership. So it's been a bumpy road
Yep.
this past year moving through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad to be here. 'Cause I
Yeah,
think before it was so, I was so wounded. I would show up so wounded, and I was so afraid. I'm
same.
so afraid, and I didn't feel the ground under us yet. Like, I couldn't feel like we had a strong foundation, which made me even more anxious and even more in fear and all these
Hmm.
things. And I clearly feel the ground under us, and it's all okay. Nobody's bouncing, Ellie. Like, you're okay to do what you need to do, and he does what he needs to do. And so I'm just glad that we moved through all of that to be here. And then, like, the future is our oyster now. Now that we're doing the
Yeah.
work, and it's beautiful.
And our partnership is a reflection, our relationship is a reflection of the work that we do individually in ourselves, because that's the relationship we're building,
Mhm.
is that ground that you speak on. Yes, we have built an amazing solid foundation that is based on trust and loyalty to one another, but it's also based on
Yeah.
our own security, on our own connection to ourselves.
Yep.
And that's what separates, for me, this relationship from anything I've ever had before,
Mhm.
is that the ground that we stand on, yes, it's very stable between us, but it's also very stable within ourselves. And I think that's really, really, really important for any couple that want to really achieve an elevated, true, authentic, loving connection is to find that stability within themselves as well as within their partnership.
Yeah. Beautiful. To anyone at home, I hope some of these points really hit and invite you to go into the deeper layers. If you do find that you run a lot of these similar programs, it's where our freedom lays. And so just open your heart and go into it, even though it's painful and it's uncomfortable. That's the healing journey. It's just the difference between when you go into it, you're anchored in now. So open your heart and connect. If you like this episode and this podcast, please share, subscribe, comment. It helps us to keep doing this podcast for free. If you're interested in working with Danny or any of our other amazing mystical life coaches, join a group class, work with us one-on-one, set up a free consultation with us at mastersofselfuniversity.com.
Could I jump in real quick?
Of course.
Yeah, just to let everyone know that we also offer, we have the group classes, we have the individual, but if you are a couple, if you are in a partnership, same sex, opposite sex, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you are in a relationship and you want to learn this work, you want to be able to move through challenges and identify programs and wounds, just like Ellie and I. Both Ellie and I and a number of other coaches are certified in this work as relationship coaches. So we coach couples together through this 12-week process of the power within, specifically designed to help you as within your partners to not argue, to go through conflict. Conflict is inevitable, but to learn how to grow from that. And just as I mentioned a few minutes ago, how to find that stable ground both within yourself and within your partnership. So just want to make everyone aware that we do offer relationship coaching. If you are interested in learning this work with your partner, and I can speak from my heart and say, if it wasn't for this work, our relationship wouldn't be nearly what is today. And I know that this is just a flower, or a tree, which is going to continue to grow and blossom for the rest of our lives, because as you mentioned, we've laid the right foundation. So if you want to lay the right foundation with your partner, please jump on a call, visit us at Masters of Self University, and we can talk about what that would look like for you and your partner.
Beautiful. And we'll see you this Saturday at Awakening to Oneness in San Diego. Tickets in the link below. We'll see you guys then. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.